Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Friend Leigh Show. I am your host and friend, Leigh. Hello. And if you were watching the first day pod, then hello, you are in the right place. We're just streaming in both areas. So I wanted to let you guys know something that I noticed today is that today is our champagne episode. I don't even know if that's a real thing, but when you if your birthday is on the 25th and you turn 25, then it's your champagne birthday because it's 25 on the 25th. I hit mine when I was 4 because I was born on the 4th. So anyway, this is the 13th episode and it's the 13th. So it's our champagne episode. Anyway, I am so excited to be talking about this topic. Today I did not know what I wanted to talk about. There's so many things that are kind of going on in my life that I was like, oh man, there's so much that we could touch on, talk about. And so I told everybody that I was coming on tonight, just reminding them. And I said, hey, what do you guys want to talk about? And we had two gals. So Mel and Sam both wanted to talk about chronic pain and how do you manage chronic pain. So I want to give the disclaimer right now. First off, I do this every episode. Usually halfway through, I'm like, oh my gosh, I should be telling you this. Mel's here. Hello, Mel. Hi. So I always say this at some point, but I know that I need to put the disclaimer right now. I am not a doctor. I'm not a therapist. I am just your friend. And I want you to imagine this show like you are coming into my living room. We're all hanging out. We're all having a conversation. Somebody happened to bring up that they're going through chronic pain and they just want to talk about it. So that's what we're going to do. So Sam is here. Hello. And then we've got howdy. This is Britt. Oh, hi. This is Mel's husband. Hi. Okay, so this is super exciting. So we are going to be talking about chronic pain. And like I said, we just came up with this a couple hours ago and I was still working. And hello, Kelly. Hi. Oh, this is going to be such a good show, you guys. And I just put it up there again, probably just because I'm so excited. Okay. So if you're listening to this in the audio version, I just want to let you know that on Wednesday nights, you want to come on over to YouTube or Facebook. You will have a much better experience because you're able to see the comments as they come up. If you're watching this live with us, then as you make comments, I'm going to just put your comment up and you are going to be part of the show. Okay. But the nice thing is you're not coming on video, so you can be in your PJs if you want. Okay. So I was like, okay, I don't have a whole lot of information about chronic pain and how to deal with it, but let's have the conversation anyway. And people can have the conversation within the comments. We'll bring them up and we'll have a chat about it. But then I was like, well, I want to have something that I can share. So I started and I was actually like, oh man, maybe I should cancel this one and do it tomorrow because I did not want to pull away from the research that I was doing because it was fascinating. So let's see who else is here. Julia's here. Hey, happy Wednesday. Oh my goodness, this is so exciting. Okay, also a reminder, if you're watching this on Facebook and you have not allowed StreamYard to do its thing, then do what Julia did and just make sure that you say that is Julia or that it's Mel. Which also, is this Melanie or Mel? My Mel. Okay, let me know. Both of you are my Mels. Okay, anyway, get back to topic. So here is some of the research that I did tonight about this, and it's just so good. Okay. So why did that go over there? Shoot. Okay, so where I got my research from was from the Huberman Lab. If you guys are in our Facebook group, you know that there is I get a lot of my information from there. And why? Because when he's distilling information, he's not like this show where it's here's what I've learned and here's what I think and here's the thing and having chats. He's a Stanford professor and he is in the science of he's in neuroscience, but also ophthalmology. And I find that fascinating. When I had my major concussion, the way that I was cured was through ophthalmology, like through my eyes. My eyes are what cured my entire condition. And so I find him to be really relatable. And he does this podcast. It's completely free, but he also has a website, hubermanlab.com. I have no affiliation with it, but you can go in there and you can search for whatever you're looking for. And then he actually has his YouTube video up there and it's time stamped. So you're able to go through and see exactly what you're looking for. And then if you come back, you're like, oh man, there was that thing. You don't have to listen to half an hour trying to find the thing. So fascinating. So one of the things that they talked about, this was a 2.5 hour interview, and it was with let me just see here, because now I'm going to have to go back and forth. For some reason, I ended up in 2 different places on my Remarkable. It's Remarkable, guys, but it also has where if you're a user of it and you're not great at technology, sometimes you can screw it up, which I did. So this is, okay, one of the stats that they gave, which I want you to know, you are not alone. If you are struggling with chronic pain, you're not alone. How many people do you guys think, just put it in the comments, how many people do you think in America on average like deals with chronic pain every year? And how much do you think is spent in medical expenses every year due to chronic pain? I'm just curious if you guys, because when I heard these numbers, I was like, holy shikeys. So I'm just going to wait until you guys put them in there because I'm just curious. Okay, you guys are all doing percentages. I love you guys. Okay, so I don't know. How many Americans are there? This is where I'm going to sound really dumb. How many Americans are there in America? So we're doing percentages. So we've got 60% says Sam, 90% says Melanie, 15% says Pops. That's what I'm going to call you. I love it. Okay. 55% says probably Julia. These are great. 1 in 5. And then somebody is helping me with about 350 million, I think. So we're looking at closer to, I guess, 1 in 3.5, 1 in 4. 100 million Americans suffer with chronic pain. That's alarming. And it's only getting worse. It's just getting worse. And then the amount in medical expenses every year is at $500 billion. So this is a major, major problem. So if you are suffering, you are not alone. Now, this is one thing that I wanted to bring up is, so when we are looking for information, because we want to help ourselves, right? Whatever we have, we want to go, yeah. So Melanie's like, holy smokes. I know it was absolutely insane. Also, I just realized I don't think I put all your comments up as I was doing it. I was just reading them, I think. I don't know. Anyway, so when we're looking for help, and for me, if something happens with my body, I tell all my friends, don't do this. And then yet I do it, right? You go on the internet and you're like, I have this thing. So I have chronic pain. How do I deal with it? And you're going to get so much information, but then you're going to look at it and be like, oh, I already tried that. That didn't work. Oh, da, 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 da. And like, because it's just not all of it is science based, right? Not all of it. Or you're hearing from other people, and pain is actually very subjective. So there's this thing where, we think that it's a 1-to-1 ratio. And inside of this video, like I'm going to put it in our Facebook group so then you guys can see it if you want to. There's a 1-to-1 ratio with pain and stimulus, right? Like you have a broken leg. Typically, this is your pain. Typically, this is your healing. Typically, this is and so what is good about that is that you have something that you're like, okay, this is going to be really painful, or, oh, it's going to be okay. It was okay for you. It's okay for me. The problem with that is that pain is, yes, it is sensory, but the majority of it is in our brain. And so here's the thing. And anybody that's in chronic pain is going to be like, oh, screw you, Leanne. It's not in my head. I'm not nuts. I'm in pain. I can physically feel it. But I'm going to go and I want to open this up because this was really, really interesting how they kind of broke it all down. So, because I know that some of you guys are not going to go watch the video. So, this is how pain is actually experienced. Most pain starts with a stimulus, right? So, you're working at now, you can have chronic pain from this and it still works the same way. So you have a stimulus, but I'm just going to say, let's say that you turned the wrong way, you got a kink in the neck and you can feel the pain right here. But that's actually not pain. There's sensory um, elements on your skin and they're called nociceptors. That's what these things are called. So what it's doing is it's sensing that there's been a change. So there's been a temperature change. Maybe your pH level has changed because there's inflammation. Maybe something has happened, and that sensor is going to now send a signal into your spinal cord and up through your brain. So it's going to go to your brain, and your brain is going to now create the subjective experience of pain. Okay. So that's why it is so hard for people to be able to, you can relate kind of to other people, but I was just gonna say the tattoo. The tattoo, for instance, is a perfect example. Everybody told me that's gonna be right on your bone. That's gonna be super painful. Mike even told me, he's like, you know what, Leigh, this might be hard for you because tattoos are uncomfortable to begin with, but this is gonna be really sensitive. And I just did not let myself go there because I was like, man, I don't want to walk in here thinking I'm going to be in pain because then I'm going to tense up and I know I'm going to get worse. So I told myself for the week before I was going, I think I'm going to just get through it. I'm okay. Now, you guys might be hearing that and be like, "Oh, that's nice, you little, what is it called? Pollyanna." But there's actually something very it's possible to be able to change the way that you're perceiving things to then sense and experience pain differently. So that was just like a very baby example, very baby, very small. But the premise was perfect because then when I was there, I kept telling myself, oh, this is easy. This is easy. This is okay. And it did not hurt me at all. So with pain, if you can reframe things, and I'm going to get to a couple different things that I learned of, and I know this to be true because I do it, but there's science behind it. If we can change the way that we're viewing the pain because it's subjective, then we have better hopes for our future and for being able to live with it. Because the other thing that we need to know is what is the goal right now? Like if you're on here and you're listening to this, what is the goal of listening to this? Because our time is so, like, we can't get our time back, right? So you're hoping to get something out of listening to this and having this conversation. And it will turn into a conversation. I just want to share this in the beginning and then we're going to open up and talk about it. But what is your goal with the pain? So is it to eliminate the pain? Because if that's the goal, that's going to be really difficult to do, especially if you've been in chronic pain for years or months or decades. It's going to be really hard because your brain is now used to the pain, and your brain is not, like, you're going to have to do a lot of work to change the way that those synapses are going, right? So if you want to get rid of the pain, that's going to be really difficult. So that's not a great goal to have. And I know that sounds awful, but what a better goal is to have is to be able to manage pain, to be able to increase your quality of life. And that is super duper doable. So I'll go into some of the ways that we can do that. The big problem is that with a lot of this chronic pain that we're feeling, it's actually an invisible disease, right? So it's different that, like, if I broke my nose, right? Like somebody just punched me in the face and I broke my nose and you saw that it looked like this and it was all bloody and broken and bruised. It's easy for you to be like, "Oh my gosh, is that painful? Oh my gosh, oh yeah, you must be in so much pain. That must hurt." You have fibromyalgia, you have inflammation, you have Crohn's, you have any of these things that nobody can see what's happening, but you're in pain and you don't want to get out of bed and you're having a hard time and you can't walk and all these kinds of things. It gets really frustrating because you don't want to be You don't want to be defending yourself all the time. You don't want to have to be like saying, no, really, like you have no idea. That is, you don't want to keep saying that because then you feel like you're alone. And so the invisible diseases are the worst for you because the pain is in your brain. And now we're feeding this that nobody understands me, nobody gets it, nobody can see how painful, like how much pain I'm in. And so now and this is also it's just gonna sound bad, but I'm the heartfelt friend. Okay. So I want you guys to know if you're listening to this for the first time, I am not the friend that's just like, shrug it off. You're fine. Suck it up. You're okay. I'm just saying these are the things that this is the way that our brain works. And these are the things that like we get to have control over. Like I said, we're not going to potentially cure our pain, but we can change our life. So, what are some of the other things? Okay, so the other thing is that pain is here to keep us alive. It's here to, when it's working, it's there to make sure that we are not injuring ourselves and that we are keeping ourselves safe from threat, right? Like if we didn't have the ability to sense pain, then when you put your hand on a hot burner or on the barbecue and you put it on there and those sensories, the what was it, non-sensories or whatever it's called, if you didn't have that and it couldn't shoot a signal to your brain to say, get your hand off of there, you would burn your hand. None of us would have probably fingers if we didn't have that. So we don't want to get rid of the ability to have pain because it is a really good marker to be able to help us, right? So it's just like fear. We talked about fear last week, and with fear, you want to get rid of it so then you can get through and have the quality of life that you want, right? But you don't want to get rid of fear completely. Like you don't want to go in and be like, okay, we found that part of the brain. Let's just zap it and get rid of it so then we never have fear again. Because then if we're in dangerous situations, you're not going to know. And then you're going to end up dying or you're going to end up falling off the cliff because you have no sense of that being fearful. You don't have that, right? So fear and pain are both there to help us. The problem is that it's running rampant and it's not protecting us anymore. It's debilitating us and it's decreasing our quality of life. And when these things are decreasing our quality of life, pain, fear, all of this, it also exacerbates the fact that we can't sleep. So if you're in pain, you can't sleep as well. And if you can't sleep, then you're more sensitive to pain, right? You eat worse because you're sleep deprived. You all of these things happen. So it's like this storm, this perfect storm that it keeps you stuck. Same thing with fear. So there's just so many like nuanced layers. So here are some of the tips because I don't want to go on too much about this, but I do want to give you guys some like, is any of this making sense and feeling any, are you happy with what's going on so far? Facebook user, somebody said, true, invisible pain is an issue. Absolutely, 100%. And there's so much layers to invisible pain that if we feel like we need to defend and we feel like we need to do that, then now we're creating this identity of a person in pain. I do have fibromyalgia. I am fibromyalgia. I will always be fibromyalgia, right? Or I am experiencing fibromyalgia and I'm going to control it. I am controlling it. I'm living my life, right? That little nuance is very different. And that is why some people with fibromyalgia can still be going out and playing tennis and doing the things, and then some are not able to. So I'm going to go through a couple of the things. So cold and heat. There's a lot of controversy out there, whether or not it works, whether or not it doesn't. But here's what cold and heat does. And here's the thing is that pain is subjective for everybody. And that the pain treatments are going to also be unique to each person. So what works for you might not work for the next person. So when we get into the conversation, which I'm really hoping that you guys are going to be open about your experiences with it, And I'm not looking for anybody just to be positive about it. I want to have real conversations about it. But you might say, "Hey, yeah, you know what? This protocol works for me." And then the next person might come and try it, and then they're going to be like, "Well, he was talking out of his ass cuz that didn't help me." And it doesn't matter. It's so subjective that it's really difficult to have specific protocols. It's not like you have an infection, here's what you do to cure it, and then you're away to the races. So cold, this is what cold does for you. So when you have compresses and things like that, it reduces the inflammation. Now, the inflammation is good. You want to have the reason why you have inflammation in your body is because your body is trying to protect it. You can kind of, I mean, this is how I interpret it. This was not from the video. A lot of this stuff that I've been saying has not been from the video, but I look at inflammation like bubble wrap. So if something is going on, if I get hit, or if you have Crohn's and you have like gut issues, you're going to get inflammation because your body's trying to put bubble wrap around that thing because it's trying to protect you. Oh my gosh, that is hurt. Let's bubble wrap that thing up so then it doesn't get hurt anymore. So then we can protect it, right? That's the way that I picture inflammation. And so what cold does is it reduces that inflammation. It also, this is something that was from the video, which was interesting. And nerves actually don't fire as fast when you're in cold. So you don't want to get to a point that you're putting, ice on an area so then you can like desensitize the area and then you end up getting frostbite. So you have to have logic, right? And common sense around these types of things. But that's why that works. So the nerves don't fire as fast. And so you're not getting as many signals of that pain when you've got the cold. Then what the heat does is it increases the blood flow and relaxes the muscles. So increasing the blood flow can get into the area where there's a problem. And then it ends up helping heal that problem. Okay. So really it's whatever works well with you. So you guys know I talk about this on the show all the time. I also talk about it in the Facebook group. This especially is going to be do the experiments for a few weeks or for a couple weeks at least to see if it works for you, right? If you're in a lot of pain, it might be hard for you to experiment with it because you're just like, "Oh my God, like I can't take anymore. Like I just want to sleep." And I'm going to get to that. That's something that's really fascinating as well. Okay, so Sam says, "I've heard be careful with your words. Don't say I have such and such. Instead, do just like you said, I am experiencing. Saying can be done with fear, anger, depression, etc." Absolutely. It sounds so woo-hooey, but you guys, the science between the brain and the body, we didn't have that 30 years ago. I mean, we did. They were doing the work. But the research that is going on right now to see the connection of what our brain does. And there's not even, how like with fear they can say, okay, so it starts in the amygdala and then it moves, and like these different parts of the brain, they have like certain things that they do. Well, there's actually no central pain point in your brain. So it's not like they can say, okay, this part of the brain is affected, and so if we can control that part of the brain, then we're going to be able to control the pain. It is actually a very I don't know what the word is, but it is throughout your whole network in your brain. And when they used to think that there was a matrix, that there were a few parts of the brain that worked together for pain. But just in the last 3 to 5 years, they've done so much work and so much research and science behind it that now they realize there's just too many parts of the brain to be able to pinpoint it, which is sad. But it's also exciting because then I think the way that I look at it is that opens up so much more ability. And this is how do you look at it? Do you look at it like I'm never going to be able to get cured because there's so many parts of my brain that are affected? Or, oh my gosh, I might be able to find something because now I have all kinds of stuff. It's not just this one part of the brain that everybody thought was pain related. And now I'm doing this one type of therapy. It's not working. Well, great. Now I have to live my rest of my life The way that I look at it is you can just keep experimenting until you figure it out. But the brain connection is the biggest part. So, here are some of the things that are huge in being able to help control your pain and your experience with pain. Okay. So, they're cognitive ways, and a lot of it is mindfulness. And do not turn off. Okay. Do not turn off and be like, oh my gosh, she's going to tell me to meditate this out. Go, whatever. It's not the case. I want you to hear the science behind it. So there's 3 different things that I want you to be considering, and one of them, and I'll go through all 3 of them. One of them is intentional distraction. So there is actual science that just proves, and I know that it's going to sound trite and like, well, I want to control this and I want to reduce it. I don't want to hide from it. But sometimes your body just needs to relax. Sometimes if it's a brain thing, then does it not make sense that if you can get your brain off of it, then you can at least relax enough to give yourself some grace and some peace, right? So, intentional distraction is actually something that physicians and surgeons will actually recommend to their client, to their patients. So, that's even just things like reading, walking, visiting with friends and family. And that's something that unfortunately we don't do because it's a double-edged sword. We don't wanna do these things because we're in pain, but because we're not doing things, we're focusing on our pain. Do you see how, like, it's just so mean to us, but that's the way that it is. So, I'm in pain, I'm tired, I'm irritable, I don't wanna be around my family. Whether it's because they're gonna piss me off and I can't deal with it because I'm in so much pain, or I'm miserable and I don't wanna, like, give that bad energy to my family. But the problem is if you could go play board games with your kids or go and, have a great conversation or a date night with your wife or go make dinner for the family or go do whatever, and you can get super mindful about what you're doing, during those moments, you're not feeling the pain. And it's kind of like that we were talking about multitasking. It's actually also happens with pain. That when you're in it, you're actually if you're really focusing on something, if you're mindful and you're right in the moment, you actually can't feel that pain as much because those parts of your brain are all firing different ways. Because now you're focused on being creative or you're focusing on making sure that you're cutting the zucchini and so different parts of your brain are all functioning for this task. And so that is why when a lot of people say, "Oh my gosh, you know what? I'm fine during the day." And then at night, it's awful. I just can't even breathe. I'm in so much pain. And that's part of it is because now you're trying to rest your body and rest your mind. And now your brain is able to, it's not doing anything else. So now it's able to focus on the pain, right? So that's one of the things. The more that you can do that, the more that you can intentionally distract yourself, then the less you're going to feel the pain. Okay. The next thing is what's called just like meeting the pain where it is, right? So going into the pain. And this is where and this is specific. So this is not just being like, "Yep, I'm in pain all the time." It's addressing it but from a non-judgmental way and from an accepting manner. Just noticing the pain. And so what happens with that is our brain is just like, "Oh, right, okay. Yeah, I'm in pain." Instead of being like, "No, I'm not in pain, I'm not in pain," and then your brain's like, "Yes, you are. Yes, you are. Remember? Here, let me make it a little bit worse for you." Or when you're talking about it all the time and you're saying, "Oh my god, I just can't believe like why is so and so? They eat the same way that I do. They live the same way that I live. Why can't I be like them? Why am I in pain and they're not?" And then we go into this catastrophic. I always say that wrong. We go into this thinking that makes it worse. And then it just ends up being worse for us. So there's a lot of research right now about MBSR, and it's mindfulness based stress reduction. And this everybody should be doing. And this is where it not only works for pain, but it works for stress reduction, for anxiety, for depression, all of it. And it's this being mindful and thinking about your pain in a accepting kind of manner. It's here. That's okay. I'm not the pain. So realizing and asking yourself, and this is kind of a third thing. These go hand in hand, but it's kind of a third thing, is direct cognitive reframing of the meaning of the pain. What meaning are you putting toward it? So sometimes when you first start something, when you first start having pain, you're like, okay, that's fine. I'm going to find the cure. I'm going to be okay. Okay, I'm just going to sleep it off. I'm going to be okay. And you have this. But then you go through pain that's like weeks. And now it's just like, I can't sleep. I can't eat properly. I'm like irritable. This is just going to be forever. I'm going to be in this forever. I'm pain, going back to that whole thing. And one of the most powerful things that we can do is that we can start looking at the pain and then asking ourselves, okay, is this pain, is it threatening or harming me? So like if you have a broken arm and you've got like a corkscrew on your arm, that's harming you. You want to go and take care of it. You want to go to the doctor, you want to go and get it reset or rebroken or whatever you need to do to get that fixed. Or if you broke your ankle, you don't want to think your way out of it, right? Like you should probably get a cast, or if you broke your foot or whatever, you should probably go and get a cast and then actually stay off of it, right? Not like I'm just going to walk through it. Which, by the way, like this is going to give me, so I broke my wrist years and years ago, and I'm going to talk myself through it. It's fine. I don't need to do the physical therapy. And I show this to my friends all the time, like whenever anybody has an issue. So physical therapy, and I'm going to get to that because that's another big thing that can help. I don't know if you guys can, going this way would probably be best. So I can put this wrist all the way down. I can't put that one down at all like that, because now my wrist is just where it is. So this was stupid in trying to reframe my pain, because then I didn't actually take care of myself. So it actually harmed me by not listening to the pain signals. But if you can listen to it and say, okay, you know what, this isn't actually harming me. It's just hurting. And I'm going to try to like reframe that. You have a lot more peace around it and you're able to do more with it. Then the other thing that I wanted to bring up, and then this is going to be it, is working with a physical therapist is huge. Okay. So there's the doctor that was in this this interview. He was saying that he likes to give treatments and everything to be able to facilitate the physical therapist's treatment. And so that I thought was really, really cool. And one of the things that they talked about was pacing. Okay. And I thought that meant like, oh, just baby steps into like walking back and forth just to get movement. But here's what it is. And for those of you, and I see that there's comments, but I'm just going to finish this and then we'll get into the actual conversation. So what pacing does is, here's the thing that happens with chronic pain. And if you have chronic pain, you can tell me if this is the case for you. So you go into this roller coaster because it's not like, okay, I have chronic pain and I'm just going to lie in bed for the rest of my life. It ebbs and it flows. You have good days and you have bad days. But what happens is, because you've been in so much pain, you have a good day and then you're like, okay, that's it. I'm having a good day. I'm going doing all the errands. I want to go for a walk with my girlfriend. I'm going to go and do this. I'm going to go do that. Oh my gosh, I'm feeling so good. I'm feeling great. And then you go to bed and then you wake up and you are out for the count. You were out. You were out maybe for weeks because you did so much that your body just couldn't take it. Now you've been in pain and you have been not moving for weeks or months or maybe years. And then you have that really good day and you take advantage of it. So now you're here, you work way too much, and now you're down. And so now what happens is it's screwing up with your brain again, because now on the good day, when you feel like you could actually go and do something, you're like, well, I'm not doing anything. Last time I did, and then I was out for 2 weeks. Unfortunately, I just can't do anything. My pain has made it chronic and I am not able to live my life. Okay. And I know that might sound silly, but we do that because the fear comes in and we look back at our experiences and say, remember when I had, and we don't say, oh, I worked too much. It's just, I worked at all. I walked at all. And so what pacing does is, if you're working with you can probably do this on your own, but it's really good to be able to work with a professional that knows what is harming your body and what's harming your muscles. Even if you have like one type of an issue, if you haven't been mobile, but it's not a leg issue, but you've had so much pain that you haven't been mobile, working with a physical therapist, they'll be able to get you on track that you can start walking again, start working out again, doing all these things without injuring new parts of your body. So what pacing is where you look at, you're going to have good days and you're going to have bad days, but on those good days, you're not running a sprint. You're training for the marathon. So if you're just trying to walk a block, you walk a block, and then on the good days when you're feeling really, really great, you might just go another 50 feet. Just go a couple houses. You're not going to go for a 5-mile walk. And so your therapist is going to help you with that pacing, that you can build it up, but that you're not going to have those spikes and then those downward spirals, right? And then what it's going to do is it's going to remind you that on those bad days, yeah, maybe you're going to sleep and you're just going to let your body relax. But then you're able to get up and maybe go do that block walk, right? But pacing is going to get you from here to here in a straighter line, in a more peaceful line, in a less hurtful and harmful line. So those are just some of the things. I have now been talking for 36 minutes, and my favorite part of the show is going back and forth with you. So I'm sorry. I was just super excited about everything that I was like learning and putting together. So I hope this was helpful. If you're listening to this in the audio version, stay tuned because we're going to now move to the part where we're going to go back and forth with comments and conversation, which is always my favorite. Okay, so we just did this one. So Janice is here. Hi, Janice. So she says, sit with your pain. Don't judge it, qualify it, just sit with it. Right. Yeah, judging it's so difficult, and not trying to say, oh, this is a really good day or this is a really bad day. I'm just here. This is where I am. I've got the pain, and now I'm going to go and do whatever that is for you. Great advice, Janice. So Sam says, so I did this last night. I listened to ASMR last night to help me fall asleep and not focus on the pain I was in. I actually fell asleep and woke up because the video changed. It was great. That is so awesome. Okay, so also what I would recommend with that is you can either set, and I know this was probably just like an accident that the video changed, but you can set your alarm so then it goes into a do not disturb mode where it'll turn off this sound, or depending on where you're listening to it, you can actually set a timer on a lot of the things. I think Spotify has it, and I believe YouTube has it. I know Spotify has it. So I sometimes set it up that it's like, okay, I'm going to give myself, look at the video, and I listen to binaural beats, and I'll give it like 2 hours, and then I'll stop it, because what's happened to me before is it's gone into something else. And then it, like you said, it wakes you up because your body's not used to it. And it's like some stupid person talking or some sort of swan. I don't know. So yeah. So setting those alarms, if this is helpful, it will go. And so that is exactly it. It's getting your brain off of it enough that you're able to go to sleep. So that is a great, great advice. Janice says, fear absolutely changes how you do things from past experiences with pain. Absolutely. Absolutely. Fear is just such a horrible, horrible thing. Like I said, we need it. But if we keep looking back at past experiences, it also like changes the story. It might not have been true. Just like when we were talking about I had a good day and then I overexerted myself, but the story doesn't become I overexerted myself. Maybe I have to do a little bit less. It comes with you had a good day and you moved. That's it. And so do not move again, because then you're just going to hurt yourself again. So fascinating. Okay. So you guys, we've got 41 people tonight. Hello, everybody. So we've got 41 people. I'm expecting this to blow up. What are your experiences with this? Do you agree with the science behind what we've been talking about? Are you angry that I'm saying this because you want to live into your identity of having pain and you just don't want to hear the fact that it's in your head, which is totally okay. I'm not saying that to be like judgy or snooty. That can also be the case. You've lived with pain for so long, you don't wanna hear that it's in my head because in my head used to have like a really bad connotation, like, "Oh, it's just in your head, get over it," right? That's like when I hear that, maybe I'm just speaking for myself. When I used to hear that, like, "Oh, this must be in your head." It's like it must be make believe and it's not a real thing. That's what you hear or interpret, but that's just not the case anymore. When these things are in our head, the majority of things that are going on are in our head and it's in our brain, and our brain is so magical. Like we can between our eyes and our brain, like our brain is connected, right? Our brain, it cannot see light. It is inside of our dark skull, and yet we can perceive light and we can perceive the sound and we can make sense of it. Like our brain is so magical. It can do so many things. But if we're not using it properly, then it can hurt us. And it's always trying to protect us. It's like the overprotective mom that ends up just hurting the kids because the kids don't grow up and are able to live, right? It's like those closet babies or attic babies that we heard of like back in the day where it was like there was a story on the news that it was like this mom was so scared of the kids getting like any kind of disease that she just like, I don't know, she was feeding them bleach or something. It was like she was so fearful of pain and so fearful she ended up hurting her children. I don't know if they died or what, but anyway, that's like a really morbid story. But that was back when was it, the 80s or something? Or is it a story that people were saying on the playground? I don't know. I thought it was a true story. But that's what I always like relate our fear and our body. Our body is always trying to protect us, but it's trying to protect us so much that sometimes it's actually hurting us. It's keeping us from living our full life. And with the pain, it's like, "Oh my gosh, I don't want you to move because you're in pain." And then because you're not moving, you're in pain, right? Like it's just so hard. Okay. So, Facebook user says, the more you say I'm in pain here or there, the more it becomes the central focus. Yeah. So, that's where like hypochondria comes in. And I think I actually have a form of hypochondria, but now I'm aware of it. And so now I'm like, because this is the way that I look at it. And Mike would call this a Leeism because I like make up these things of like, oh, this must be why it's happening. But it really makes sense to me. So I think I'm a hypochondriac. And I think the reason is because I really can manifest things. I can manifest things into my life, good and bad. So I can also like if I'm with Zoom, I've realized I do this, and this is where I've realized I'm a hypochondriac. So if I'm out and I'm at a party or at a bar or at whatever, I don't go to bars anymore, but this is how like dated it was that I had this feeling. If there were sick people around me that were coughing or whatever, I'd be like, I'm going to get sick. And then I would usually get sick, right? The reason why I realized that I was a hypochondriac and that it wasn't actually like that person like sneezed on me and I got sick. It was I really made myself get sick. So I really became susceptible to it. And the reason why I know that is because on Zoom calls, if I'm having a Zoom, this is so embarrassing, maybe. When I'm having a Zoom call, if that person is like, yeah, so and they're sick, I can feel myself start getting sick. I'm like, oh my gosh, oh, I don't feel good. And that to me is how powerful my brain is. And now I'm very conscious of making sure that I'm talking myself into what I want, not even out of what I don't want, but into what I want. Because our brain can't really establish yes and no's. Like it can't really establish I'm not in pain, I am in pain. It's just here's pain. And it's like, oh, okay, I'll give you more of that. Like so I really try to focus on like what I want so then it doesn't have to worry about that part of it. Okay, so Sam says, yes, what you focus on expands. It absolutely does. Now, here's the other thing, guys. I don't want this to sound like this is the end all be all. Like if you like the wrist example. Oh, that's actually a very good example. Anyway, That example. I don't want you to be in pain and say, "Oh, Leigh said that I can just like talk myself through it." Like, be conscious of, should I go and get this checked? Should I go and get this taken care of? Is this harmful for my body? So there's different things about pain, and then the pain tolerance and what things are happening to your body. But if it's been in your brain, and if the doctors don't know, if the doctors are just like, "Oh my gosh, I have no idea, like we're going to go for more tests." Help yourself and experiment with yourself with some of these things. And you can come over to the Facebook group, the Friend Leigh Show. I'm going to share the videos, and I'm going to share them from his website, not the YouTube videos. Normally I share the YouTube videos, but I'm going to share this specific one that I saw. I think it was like 2 hours, 2.5 hours, something like that. But like I said, it has all the timestamps. And if you scroll down, it's got the science, the papers, the research that is behind all of this. So empower yourself. And this would be a really great way for you to start playing experiments with your brain to see if you can start helping it and feeling a little bit less. Um, and improving your quality of life, having that intention of, this is why I'm doing this. I'm doing this so then I can improve my quality of life. I can improve my relationships with my family. I can improve and go with my goals. The other thing that happens is when you go with, okay, I'm going to have the intention of having a better quality of life, then now you're going to have more goals. You're going to be doing more things. And then we're going to get back into that intentional distraction thing, right? Like, it's, see how like we can spiral down or spiral up depending on how we're thinking about things. So anyway, Janice says, I actually did an experiment with my pain a few months ago. The more I spoke of my pain to myself or others, the more I suffered with it. I purposely did this for a month. The next month, I did the opposite, not acknowledging it, speaking of it, or anything like that. And after 2 weeks, I noticed my pain had subsided to a level where I forgot about it off and on. I proved a point to myself. Boom, right there. Absolutely. That is a really fun experiment to do. So, yes, take Janice's lead, try that example. And here's the other thing that you're going to probably have to work on is, if you've been in pain or you've been sick for a very long time, it becomes an identity. Just like the identity of I'm not good enough, just like the identity of I'm a slow reader, I don't have a good memory, I'm not a morning person, like whatever it is that you're hanging on to, you get to keep. And so if you are used to saying, "Oh, I have fibromyalgia. I suffer with, if that is part of, like, start being conscious of the words that you're using, especially if it says I am, and start there too, where I'm just not gonna call myself. I'm not gonna label myself as that diagnosis. Um, because here's the other thing. So it's the same thing when we were talking about ADHD. I found that the more that I was talking about having ADHD, the more I was finding that I was experiencing ADHD, where I've had ADHD for probably my entire life, like definitely my adult life, but I didn't label it years and years ago. And so I found techniques to get through it because I was just like, "Oh man, I'm having a hard time with this. Let me figure this out." And so I had these like tactics that I was creating for myself to be able to work through it because I didn't have a label for it. But then as soon as you have a label for it, it becomes very easy to then say, "Oh man, so and so also has that ADHD, fibromyalgia, broken ankle, whatever it is, fill in the blank, and they're experiencing this. So I'm going to experience this. So I shouldn't even bother trying because that is going to be my experience." And it's just not. So it's absolutely fascinating. I just want to thank you guys for being here and having this amazing conversation. I'm going to kind of just like talk a little bit more just in case something else comes up that, like pops. I want to know, how are you feeling? Like, you're new to the show. Did you get anything from this? Melanie, how are you feeling? So I've got quite a few of you guys. Kelly, I mean, there's 48 of you. So how are you guys feeling about it? Do you have any other tips that you want to share that has worked? And if not, you can go ahead, and if you're watching this in Facebook, this replay is going to be there indefinitely. It doesn't delete. So you can come back with whatever's working for you and come back and share it with the people, with our friends. And I think I'm also going to share, so I'm going to share that video. I'm also going to share some other things that I'm going to be finding, because I think this is a fascinating topic. Sam, Mel, I'm so happy that you guys suggested it. I'm so happy that I did the research before this, so then we could have a really good conversation about it. So yeah, it's just so good. Kelly says, I've learned so much from this. Also, that was a lot of fascinatings. Are you drunk? We have like a little insider joke from our book club. Okay, Lisa's here. Hey, Lisa. Hi, nice to see you. And then Facebook user, Melanie. Melanie says, I'm just soaking all this info. I'm just glad my hubby hopped on. I'm happy too. It is so awesome. And you guys, I don't get offended by anything. Well, I shouldn't say that. I do, but I really try not to. So if you don't agree with something that I've said, let me know. Let's have a conversation about that as well. Like, I love conversations. I'm super curious. I always want to learn. And I was in my mastermind earlier before this meeting, and one of the quotes that I gave, I like to like end with inspiration. And one of the quotes the quote that I used was, it was from Zig Ziglar. And it said, if you aren't willing to learn, nobody can help you. If you're determined to learn, nobody can stop you. And I think that is a really good message for our health and for our being. The more that we can learn, not from everybody else, but from experimenting with ourselves, the more that we can learn about ourselves and our pain and our hurts and our beliefs and our limiting beliefs and all of it, the more that we can learn, nobody can stop us. So, okay, so let's see here. Okay, so this is from Pops. I like the idea of intentional distraction, but I like that. But I really have to listen to my pain, because if it flares up, I have to stop immediately or else. Okay, so what my question would be, or else what? Also, I just learned, and this is something that I didn't just learn this, because I did a podcast about this probably a year ago. This is something that's really interesting, is the word but. It ends up kind of hurting us, because then it's like, I like this idea of intent. And okay, is it Brit? Is that, shoot, I'd have to scroll up. I'm hoping that your name is Brit. Mel talks about you all the time. I mean, she absolutely adores you. So anyway, so it can look like this if you use the word but. I like the idea of intentional distraction, but I really have to listen to my pain, because if it flares up, I have to stop immediately or else. And then that's it. And so now you're going to want to do intentional distraction, but then your brain's going to be like, oh God, that feels awful. Like, that doesn't feel good, because then or else is going to end up happening, right? So if you can change but for and. So I like this idea of intentional distraction, and I really have to listen to my pain, because if it flares out, I have to stop and kind of take out that catastrophizing. Is that the word? Part of immediately or else, because then it sounds really dangerous. And if it is dangerous, that's okay. Stop means stop, right? And I really hope that you're not being offended when I'm talking like this. But our words matter, and our words are really powerful. So, and I have to stop, and that's okay. That means that you have to stop. And then tomorrow you can pick up and try again. Or when you're feeling better, you can pick up and try again, right? You can do that whole pacing where you're doing it properly, that you're not doing so much, because I want you to take that part of it in. I don't want you just to take intentional distraction and then be like, I'm going to run the marathon tomorrow. You want to have both of those in line, right? But the immediately or else is really scary. And I wouldn't want to even attempt intentional distraction if I had that looming on the other end. Right? Do you know what I mean? So like the way that you word it, and I know that if you've been in pain for a long time, dude, like it's hard. So I'm definitely not trying to be judgy. I'm just trying to help with this. So Mel, give him a hug for me. Okay. So then Facebook user also says, perfect quote. Yes. I absolutely love that quote. And you know what? Remember, Leanne, I will do a little graphic for that quote and I'll put it in our Facebook group so you guys have it. So Pop says, or else I'm down for 3 or more days. Okay, so there you go. So that might be where the pacing comes in, right? And or else is also like we already talked about that. It's scary. It sounds very like, or else I'm going to light up in flames, right? Like it, or else never sounds good. And it's like, you grew up with that where the teachers were like, you better sit down or else nothing feels good about that. So, but if you know that you're going to be down for 3 or more days, it's because you were working way too much. And so trying to figure out that pace, whether it's with a doctor or with a physical therapist or just knowing your own body and saying, okay, you know what? I feel so good right now. Like I am going to go and I'm going to epoxy everything. Okay. And that's very specific because I love your work. So, but I'm going to go and just do everything and I'm going to work all through the night because I'm just like, I have this energy and I feel good and I'm just going to go. Well, instead of doing that, just saying, okay, I'm having a good day. And you know what? I'm going to pace myself for the rest of the week. I have the energy right now that I feel like I could go and you know, do 3 tables. But I'm going to do half a table right now. And then tomorrow I'm going to work on a little bit more. And then the next day. And so now over the course of a week, you get the same amount done than if you were to do it all in one day and then be down 3 or 4 days. But now you're not going on that roller coaster, right? So that pacing, I think, is going to be really, really fascinating. Okay. So then Facebook user says, when you word it like that, you give an out. Your brain focuses on the out. How did I word what and what is the out? Sorry. Hopefully you listening to this in the podcast form or on here, you know what was tracking because I don't know. Okay. So I think I know what you're talking about, but maybe I'm a little bit lost and I just want to make sure. Oh, the but. Yes. Yes. That's exactly it. So the but is a word like that using the word but instead of and. It gives you an out and your brain focuses on that out. Yes, it absolutely does. So now Pop says, "Hun, you don't have the ability to offend me. That's on me to decide." Boom, boom. Okay. So he also says, "My dad said, never let your actions or reactions be determined by someone else." Hey, okay, that's awesome. That's like grandpops right there. I love that. Never let your actions or reactions be determined by somebody else. Amen. Okay, you guys, this was so, so awesome. So I could really talk about this forever. So what we're going to do next week, Facebook user says, love that, Pops. Yes, I do too. So what we're going to do is next week, we are going to continue the talk about fear and pain. Okay. And then whatever else you want to bring to the table. It is always open forum. It's seriously like you're in our living room and just chatting and whatever ends up coming up. And if you've ever been on a walk with me or hung out with me, you know that it's like beep, boop, beep, all over the place. And hopefully we come back to like central zone where we can talk about what we started with. But with topics like this, I think it's going to be really exciting to be able to keep going. So if you're in the Facebook group, I want you to share your experiences. I want you to share your wins too, guys. And I want you to introduce yourself. I want this to be a really nice community inside of that Facebook group. But also, if you have techniques, if you've been using CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, if you've been trying any of the things that we talked about today and you're having experiences with it, share it in the group. And then next week, we'll come back and we'll talk about how the experiments went. So if you're going to try some of the things, go ahead and think about what you want to try and then experiment with it for the next 7 days. And the next Wednesday, we'll come back and we'll have a conversation about that. So Facebook, Melanie says, thank you, Leigh. This was so good. Well, Mel, thank you so much for bringing this up. Between you and Sam, we would have probably talked about something else if it wasn't for you ladies. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I am going to end this for now. Facebook user says, great show. I really hope so. I feel it was good. I got so much out of it. Pops, thank you so much for being here. All of you guys, if you're in First Day Pod or the Friend Leigh Show, thank you for being here. We are here every single Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern time, 7 p.m. Central. I hope to see you next week, and we will continue the conversation. I love you. Bye.